Hey everyone, happy Thursday and welcome to another episode of Day in the Life of Vintage Classic Specialist. So had the shop to myself for most of today, except Jacob came in later in the day, as he does often after he gets out of school. So let me talk about what happened today. Mostly was focused on the super cool 63 ragtop and the blue buggy there. So let's talk about this beauty first. So with this car, I pretty much finished installing his air cleaner. I still need to put the sticker on it, so it looks a little bare right now. But basically what I had to do was, these have this little flapper here, which is supposed to basically like at idle or at low engine speeds, it's supposed to suck air through this hose here, which picks up warmed air off as it comes off the cylinder head, kind of underneath here. And then as you kind of get into the throttle and RPMs increase, then it overcomes this little weight and this thing opens, and then you're sucking in, more like fresh air through there. And this flap basically at that point closes this passage down here. And so I don't know what the point of that is, why warm air is better at idle. I don't know. I'm sure it would run fine without that. But again, this is a nice and correct restoration, so we like those kind of details. But anyway, so his flap was missing one of the little bushings. And so you see the one here that's kind of bright white. That's one that I machined today. So made that out of Delrin, and the original one is here. So I don't know, maybe I should have made two so that they matched in terms of the color, but it was kind of a pain in the ass to make. Not the most difficult thing I've ever made on the lathe before, but it was kind of a pain only because I had to put a slit in it and then basically like force it on over this shaft. I think when VW put these together, because their bushings don't have any slit on them, I think the bushings are actually put on this shaft before they're formed all the way, or maybe at least before this weight and the plate here go on. But however they do it, I wasn't able to do it that way. So you can probably see, you see a little slit in there, right there at the top. So I put that in it, and then I sort of spread it open, got it over the shaft, the rod, whatever you want to call it, and then put it together. So there you go. I had to make that. I don't know anyone that sells that little bushing, and you wouldn't be able to get it on anyway unless they came with a slit like that. So anyway, that was pretty long-winded, but that's what I did. So yeah, that allowed me to go ahead and put his air cleaner on for real and connect all of its respective hoses here. You got, again, this preheat one here, and then the other one is just oil vapor, coming out of the motor. And so other than that, I'm not going to show it, so you'll have to take my word for it, but I finished connecting his battery, which is, of course, under the back seat there. He had a correct battery cover, which looks, for those of you that don't know, they look about like that. And his was kind of gross, so I cleaned it up a little bit and painted it semi-gloss black. And then he did have the correct strap and everything that goes over it to hold down the battery and hold the cover on it. So kind of cleaned all that stuff up, cleaned up the area around it. It had a lot of like corrosion in that area, so cleaned that some more. And then I put on a new shift coupling. So yeah, hopefully all done back there. Put the access cover back on. And so yeah, this car, I may be taking it for a spin tomorrow. We'll see, at least in the parking lot, and see how that goes. The motor, again, I had previously done the cam break-in and stuff on it, changed the oil, adjust the valves again. So yeah, it should be ready to go now, other than any minor tweaking to the carburetor. And I don't remember if I set his timing yet or not. I think I did, but I will double check that. And then at that point, this car mechanically is done. And then, as I mentioned before, he wants us to paint and powder coat his wheels in the correct colors, and then he wants to run 1-inch white walls on it, so I got to get all that stuff underway. But in the meantime, I did want to kind of finish up the mechanical part of the car, which again, we put a new engine in it and fully restored it to correct 40 horse spec, and then also it's got a new transmission in it as well. So that was about the first, no, not quite half my day, first couple hours or so, a few hours maybe. And then from there, I turned my attention to this guy, which now runs. So that's pretty exciting. Just a few last things that I had to do before we actually fired this thing up. One of which was connect the battery, which is underneath there. And this little tiny battery, it spins over this motor really fast. I don't know, kind of looking at the size of that battery, I was feeling a little unsure, but it really spins this thing over fast. I'm very impressed by that little battery. So yeah, connected the battery, checked the electrical, at least, you know, the starter and stuff like that. Idiot lights come on, fuel gauges seem to be working. I haven't tested the turn indicators and headlights and stuff yet, but mainly I wanted to focus today on actually getting this thing started. And then Jacob, when he came in, had him go ahead and add the fuel filter and the 2 hoses connecting back there, get that all hooked up. So going to start this thing, as usual, you know, this is a brand new build. So needless to say, there was no fuel in the line running up to the tank. But so usually if you prime the carburetor and you kind of get the things to start and run for a couple seconds, you get it to run for a couple seconds. Usually that's enough to prime these fuel pumps, and then eventually it'll fill up the float bowl, and then, you know, they'll run. So we kept priming this thing and priming it, and, you know, it would run for a few seconds and stop. And eventually I'm like, okay, this fuel pump is not pumping. So we pulled the line off, and sure enough, nothing was coming out. And so basically we pulled the fuel pump, and I don't know. So again, this engine was out of a donor buggy that was a driving car, and the owner drove the car that had this motor in it. And so I'm not sure how this is possible, but let me show you what we found, why the fuel pump was not pumping fuel. Oh shoot, what did I do with it? Oh man, hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. Here it is. So somebody had taken a fuel pump push rod, and you can see how it's been cut down, because this is not the normal shape how they look. Normally the end that goes on the distributor drive, which has like a cam on it that pushes this thing up and down, normally it looks like that. So somebody had monkeyed with this one. So that was kind of the first sign. But before we even pulled this out, what we noticed was when we took the fuel pump off and we turned the motor over by hand, is that fuel pump rod was never coming above the surface that the fuel pump sits on. So that, you know, they sit on this like plastic block here. So the fuel pump rod was never going above that surface, which means that there was no way it was pumping the fuel pump, because it basically has to push the little lever in the fuel pump up past that surface, if that makes sense. And it was never going past that. It would kind of go down in there and then back up to, like, you know, say nearly flush with that surface, but never up past it. So I don't know how this was a driving car. And of course I don't have any reason to doubt the owner, but this fuel pump wasn't doing anything because it literally wasn't being pumped. So that is a bit of a mystery. But we dug around in our stash and we found the correct length push rod and put it in and primed it like once, maybe twice, and then boom, the thing fired right up. So yeah, problem solved. Again, I didn't expect that because, again, this was a driving motor. I don't know how it was running with that hacked off fuel pump push rod, but whatever the case, it runs now. In fact, why don't we go ahead just for shits and giggles here and fire this thing up. Now, of course, watch, it won't start. Oh, there we go. Yep, fires right up. So, there you go. So, yeah, it seems to be firing right up and running well now. So, yeah, that was most of the rest of the afternoon was messing around with this thing and, you know, a decent amount of time trying to troubleshoot the fuel pump issue. But, yeah, in the end, we were victorious. Starts now. I do have to actually go and add a wire for the electric choke, which is kind of hidden back here, and so that just will run to the positive side of the coil to pick up 12 volt key on power. And other than that, maybe a little carburetor adjustment here and there. Shouldn't need much, again, because this was a running driving car. Of course, running and driving means different things to different people. I don't know how well it was running, but the owner didn't mention that it was running, you know, poorly or anything. But I may actually take this car on a little spin today too. Oh, before I forget, the other thing I did was the front seats before were just literally sitting in there. So there's studs that Brian Washburn and team put on the floor that you can see there. So I went and picked up some lock nuts today, and the seats are actually bolted in. So they are in for real now. And I went and got hardware and mounted his seatbelts that he supplied. So, I do need to test his lights and indicators and stuff. But I think other than, you know, putting some confidence miles on this thing and, you know, hopefully all the electrical lights and everything's working, maybe a little carburetor adjustment, I think this car is done, actually. Very, very little left to do to it. So, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe by the end of next week, this thing will be ready for its owner. Not making any promises, but super, super close right now. So pretty exciting. And yeah, I may be test driving 2 cars tomorrow. We'll see. I'll let you guys know. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go. And thank you, as always, for watching. We will see you again tomorrow. Bye.